Finally tonight here, remembering actress Cicely Tyson, who broke barriers, carefully selecting her roles and her words, always with dignity and grace.
Next tonight, celebrating an American original, Little Richard, a founding father of rock and roll with an unforgettable flair. He has died. Here's ABC's David Wright.
But final words are what truly haunt us. For celebrities, these are not just farewells. They mark the end of an era, a legend. Some last words are filled with regret, while others seem to predict their own demise. For Black figures who fought tirelessly against injustice, their final words carry an even deeper message, one that echoes through history. Do you know what those messages are? Why have some last words shaken the world for decades? Behind them lie Hollywood's darkest secrets, unresolved mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Are you ready to lift the veil? The 23rd Final Words Ahead reveal 23 of the most chilling truths in the entertainment industry. 1. Bessie Smith. I'm about to get my reward. Bessie Smith was a name that resounded through an entire era. She wasn't just the Empress of the Blues, she was a legend. With a powerful voice and a commanding stage presence, Bessie once captivated audiences with every note. She didn't just stand at the peak of her career. She was one of the most influential Black artists of the early 20th century. But no matter how talented she was, she couldn't escape the tragedy of a ruthless, racist society. And then, on September 26, 1937, fate put an end to her life in the most brutal way. The roar of an engine echoed along Highway 61 as the dark brown Packard rolled through the gloomy night. Bessie Smith leaned back in her seat, her body exhausted from endless nights of performing. Suddenly, headlights flashed, and then a devastating crash. A truck slammed into them, the Packard spun out of control and plunged into a ditch. In an instant, Bessie was thrown from her seat, her body buried in the wreckage. Blood streamed down her right arm, the injury too severe. But she was still breathing, still clinging to hope, until human cruelty snatched it away. The first ambulance arrived at the scene, but they didn't take her. A cold reason: we don't take colored folks. Bessie lay there in agony, exhausted, as every passing minute felt like a death sentence. Another ambulance came, but instead of rushing her to safety, they argued over which hospital was more suitable for her. An hour passed before she was finally taken to a hospital for Black patients. By then, it was too late. At 11:30 a.m., after a desperate struggle with death, Bessie opened her eyes one last time. With a faint breath, she whispered, "I'm about to get my reward." And then there was only silence. A great voice was silenced, a legend was gone. But that unjust death couldn't extinguish her legacy. The blues still ring out, and Bessie Smith's name lives on in history as a reminder of the world's cruelty and the unyielding power of art. 2. Donnie Hathaway. I Don't Want to Live Anymore. Donnie Hathaway, a soul music genius with an emotive voice and love songs that touch the heart. He was the mastermind behind masterpieces like A Song for You and Someday We'll All Be Free, reaching the depths of his listeners' emotions. But behind the stage lights, he wasn't a happy man. Paranoid schizophrenia gnawed at him, turning him into a prisoner of his own mind. And then, on January 13, 1979, the world lost a brilliant voice in a way no one could have imagined. That night, Donnie met with friends at the Essex House Hotel in New York. They talked about new projects, about music, but Donnie was different. He was quiet, lost in thought. His words came in fragments, his eyes distant. Then he said something that left everyone stunned. "I don't want to live anymore." No one thought that just a few hours later, he'd truly leave this world. As night fell, Donnie returned to his room. The door slammed shut. No one knows what happened in those final moments. But around 10 p.m., a jarring sound rang out. Hotel staff rushed to the scene. A haunting sight greeted them. Donnie Hathaway's body lay motionless on the first-floor canopy, having fallen from the 15th floor. Police arrived, but there were no signs of a struggle or foul play. The window was still open, cold air flooding the empty room. At 33, a genius was gone, taking his unspoken pain with him. but his voice lives on, like a whisper from a beautiful, tormented past, haunting and unforgettable. 3. Richard Pryor. I've Laughed Enough. Richard Pryor, a comedy legend who turned the cruelest tragedies into bitter laughter. He wasn't just a comedian, he was a game changer who redefined how comedy reflected life. His stories weren't just funny, they were raw slices of racism, addiction, and violence, things he'd lived through himself. He grew up in a brothel, where his mother was a sex worker and his grandmother ran the show. His childhood had no fairy tales, only violence, abuse, and scars that never healed. But those very things fueled his comedy. Pryor feared no topic. He laid bare every truth, turning the most painful moments into biting laughs. Fame came in the 1970s. He sold millions of comedy albums, becoming a stage icon. But inside, Pryor was a deeply wounded man. Cocaine and alcohol became his companions. One night in 1980, high out of his mind, he set himself on fire, running through his house as flames engulfed him. When he survived, he just laughed and said, "I wanted to see how fast I could run while burning." But no one could laugh with him. Tragedy never stopped stalking his life. In 1986, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. His body slowly shut down, his laughter faded. On December 10, 2005, he looked at his family one last time, gave a weak smile and whispered, "I've laughed enough." Then everything went quiet. A legend closed his chapter, leaving a world still chuckling at his timeless work. But this time, the laughter came with an unnamed sorrow. 4. Little Richard. I'm Ready to Meet the Lord. Little Richard, the rock and roll pioneer, the rebel who never bowed, closed his turbulent life on May 9, 2020, after a long battle with bone cancer. But what stunned the world wasn't his passing. It was his eerily calm acceptance of death. No more wild screams, no more explosive stage moves. Just a man ready to leave this earth, a stark contrast to the chaos of his life. From a poor black boy rejected by his family for being gay, Little Richard shattered every barrier to become one of history's greatest artists. In 1955, with Tutti Frutti, he redefined music with thunderous piano riffs and untamed shrieks like nothing before. He inspired Elvis Presley, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix. But at his peak, he quit music to become a preacher, convinced God had sent him a warning. Rock and roll never let him go, though. He returned to the stage, only to abandon it again in 1977, vowing to live for God alone. Yet the spotlight kept pulling him back. By his 80s, illness began to ravage his body. Arthritis, a failing spine, then bone cancer in 2016. In his final years, he didn't complain or cling to life. On his last day, feeling his time was up, he gathered his family by his bedside, looked at them one last time and said, "I'm ready to meet the Lord." A few hours later, he slipped away quietly. No more pounding piano, no more flamboyant outfits, but his legacy endures. Whenever Tutti Frutti plays, the world remembers him, the man who turned his life into an everlasting rock and roll storm. 5. Michael Jackson. They're Trying to Kill Daddy. On June 25, 2009, the world froze at the news. Michael Jackson, the towering icon of pop music, was gone. He wasn't just a singer, he was a legend, with hundreds of millions of albums sold, revolutionary dance moves, and a 40-year career that shone brighter than most. But behind the glamour was a haunted life, filled with fears and a death that remains fiercely debated. Before his final breath, Michael Jackson said something chilling to his son. "They're trying to kill Daddy." Hours later, he was found unconscious in his Holmby Hills mansion. Medics rushed to the scene but couldn't save him. The official cause? An overdose of propofol, a powerful anesthetic. But given what Michael feared, this was no simple accident. In his final years, Michael repeatedly warned friends he was being watched. He believed a shadowy force was out to destroy him. He told his lawyer someone was poisoning him. He told loved ones he'd be killed like John Lennon. These weren't delusions. Michael was entangled in financial disputes worth hundreds of millions, with plenty of people willing to do anything to control his vast fortune. On the night of June 24th, Michael was rehearsing for his This Is It tour. He was full of energy, ready for a comeback. But in the early hours of June 25th, his doctor, Conrad Murray, gave him propofol to help him sleep. That was the last time Michael Jackson opened his eyes. At noon on June 25th, he stopped breathing. Murray called for help, but it was too late. Michael was rushed to the hospital with no pulse. At 2:26 p.m., the world officially lost a legend. But the question lingers: was this really a careless death or a calculated murder? Why was Murray using propofol at home, a drug meant for hospitals? Why did all the security cameras in Michael's mansion suddenly lose their footage? Why did Michael predict his own murder? Murray was convicted of manslaughter and served 4 years, but many believe he was just a pawn in a bigger scheme. Michael's last words weren't just fear. They might be the key to unlocking the truth behind one of music's most mysterious deaths. 6. Whitney Houston. I'll see him soon. On February 11th, 2012, the world mourned as music legend Whitney Houston was found dead in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. She wasn't just a singer. She was an icon of a generation. With over 200 million albums sold, 415 prestigious awards, and a voice that touched millions, her sudden death left everyone reeling, especially since her final words seemed like a fateful prophecy. Just a day before her death, Whitney Houston unexpectedly took the stage at a Hollywood club. Amid the crowd, she sang a snippet of the hymn "Jesus Loves Me" and said, "I'll see him soon." No one paid much attention. No one thought that less than 24 hours later, Whitney would be gone. On February 11th, at 3:36 p.m., hotel staff found her unconscious in the tub. The water was still hot. Her body was face down, blood trickling from her nose. Police said she drowned, worsened by cocaine and sedatives, but the chilling details around it make it hard to believe this was just an accident. In her final years, Whitney spiraled into addiction. She was gaunt, her voice a shadow of its former glory. People saw her wandering the hotel, screaming incoherently. She told friends someone was out to ruin her. The day before her death, hotel staff swore they heard commotion in her room. She had bruises on her forehead and shoulder, but police didn't pursue a homicide angle. The hotel's security cameras mysteriously recorded nothing unusual. Who was the last person to see her alive? Did someone enter her room before she died? Those questions remain unanswered. 4 years later, Whitney's daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, was found unconscious in a bathtub. The circumstances mirrored her mother's death exactly. 6 months later, she passed away. Autopsies showed cocaine, alcohol, and morphine in her system, just like Whitney. 2 deaths, mother and daughter, eerily identical. A curse or a conspiracy? Whitney Houston is gone, but the mystery of her death remains a gaping question no one can answer. 7. Florence Ballard. They took everything from me. On February 22, 1976, Florence Ballard, the founding voice of the legendary girl group The Supremes, died at 32 from heart failure. But everyone knows she didn't die from illness. She died from betrayal, from being drained dry, from being cast aside when she was no longer useful. Before her last breath, Florence bitterly said, "They took everything from me." Florence Ballard once had it all. She created the Supremes, delivering 12 Billboard #1 hits, selling over 100 million records, and helping Motown dominate the world. But she was the first to be erased. Diana Ross, backed by label boss Berry Gordy, gradually stole the spotlight. By 1967, Florence was kicked out of the group, lost her recording contract, lost all her money. From a soul music star, she became a nobody, jobless and broke. In her final years, Florence drowned in alcohol, abused by her own husband. She went bankrupt, lived off meager welfare, crashing at friends' houses. When she tried to return to the stage, fate gave her no chance. Just a day after checking into a hospital for chest pain, Florence Ballard was gone, taking her resentment to the grave. They stripped her of everything: fame, career, wealth, and even her life. 8. Cicely Tyson. I Live to Tell Our Story. On January 28, 2021, Hollywood lost a titan. Cicely Tyson, a pioneering actress and unyielding black icon, took her last breath at 96. She passed just 2 days after releasing her memoir, Just As I Am, as if she'd completed her life's final mission. And before closing her eyes, she left behind a haunting last statement: I lived to tell our story. Those words were her life. Cicely Tyson wasn't just an actress. She was a fighter who changed how Hollywood saw black people. When the industry tried to box them into roles as maids, slaves, or prostitutes, she stood up and defied it. In 1972, she made history with Sounder, becoming one of the first black actresses nominated for an Oscar. Then she stunned again with the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, playing a character from age 23 to 110, earning her 2 Emmys. But that spotlight came at a cost. Hollywood doesn't forgive those who buck the system. Tyson was blacklisted, losing roles for refusing to play parts that degraded black people. But she never backed down. She fought for 70 years, winning a Tony, Emmys, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And when she'd told her story, she slipped away quietly, leaving an immortal legacy. Cicely Tyson didn't just live, she rewrote history. 9. Donna Summer. I Don't Want to Leave the Stage Lights. On May 17, 2012, Donna Summer, the greatest disco queen of all time, passed away at 63. She died quietly after a secret battle with lung cancer, with no announcement, no farewell to her fans. But what broke the world's heart most was her final plea: I don't want to leave the stage lights. It wasn't just a statement. It was the choked cry of an artist who lived, breathed, and burned for music. For over 4 decades, Donna Summer set the world ablaze with her feverish disco beats, turning dance floors into sanctuaries of freedom and passion. Hot Stuff, I Feel Love, Love to Love You Baby. Those hits didn't just create a legend, they defined an era. But the spotlight didn't last forever. In 1979, disco faced a brutal backlash, and Donna Summer went from queen to outcast. For years, she lived in the shadows, fighting to reclaim her place. Just as the stage lights flickered back on, fate cruelly snuffed out her chance. In 2010, she was diagnosed with lung cancer but kept it hidden, still recording, still dreaming of one more moment on stage. But destiny denied her that. On her final day, she didn't speak of pain or fear. She spoke of the stage. Donna Summer didn't want to leave that light, but she had no choice. Even so, her music stays with us, and those stage lights will never truly go out. Etta James Brown. I'm Going Away Tonight. James Brown wasn't just the godfather of funk, he was a monument. With over 800 songs and 73 charting on the Billboard Hot 100, he changed music forever. Hits like I Got You, I Feel Good, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, and Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud catapulted him to the top. But behind the stage, Brown's life was a mess of addiction, violence, and in the end, a death shrouded in mystery. On December 23, 2006, James Brown checked into a hospital with pneumonia. No one thought these would be his final days. But then, on the night of December 24th, Brown looked his doctor in the eye and said something spine-chilling. I'm going away tonight. No one believed him. Doctors insisted he could recover. But at 1:45 a.m. on Christmas Day, his heart stopped. Something about this death feels off. Dr. Marvin Crawford, Brown's physician, later admitted he shouldn't have died that fast. No autopsy was performed, but those close to Brown wouldn't let it rest. Over 13 people demanded a reinvestigation. His daughter claimed he was poisoned. An ex-girlfriend said she had proof of a murder plot. CNN even launched its own probe, uncovering a slew of red flags in the medical records. Yet the truth remains buried. and James Brown's eerie prediction stands as one of music history's biggest unsolved mysteries. 11. Wilson Pickett. I'm still the wickedest. Wilson Pickett wasn't just a soul legend, he was a tempest. With a fiery voice and untamed stage energy, Pickett gave us timeless hits like In the Midnight Hour, Mustang Sally, and Land of 1,000 Dances. But his life wasn't just music. It was a series of battles, run-ins with the law, and in the end, a last stand that left the world speechless. On January 19, 2006, Wilson Pickett lay in a hospital bed, his body wrecked from decades of booze and drugs. But instead of fading quietly, he sat up, eyes blazing, clenched his fist, and roared his final words, "I'm still the wickedest." Seconds later, he collapsed. His heart stopped. A legend was gone, but his spirit stood tall like a defiant warrior to the very end. Pickett's death wasn't a surprise. His body was a ruin after years of excess. But the way he went out, bold, proud, unapologetic, gave everyone chills. No regrets, no fear, no begging. Even as death knocked, Wilson Pickett stayed wild and free. An artist who never bowed, a legend who lived and died undefeated. 12th, Marvin Gaye. Father, don't shoot me. Marvin Gaye was a soul and R&B titan, a genius with a mesmerizing voice and timeless hits like What's Going On, Let's Get It On, and Sexual Healing. He reshaped music forever, but no one could have guessed his death would be so tragic, shot dead by his own father in his own home. His last words were a desperate plea, "Father, don't shoot me." On April 1st, 1984, just a day shy of his 45th birthday, Marvin Gaye fell onto blood-soaked sheets, a bullet through his heart. The shooter was his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., the man who'd tormented him from childhood. This horrific story didn't start that day. It was written in years of beatings, insults, and abuse. As a kid, Marvin lived under his father's fist, enduring brutal attacks that drove him to escape into music. But no matter how far he ran, he came back, only to be destroyed by the man who gave him life. That fateful day, Marvin and his father argued again. Rage erupted. Marvin lunged, knocking his father down. But as he turned away, his father pulled out a handgun, the very gun Marvin had once given him as a gift. One shot pierced his heart, another hit his shoulder. Marvin crumpled. The world reeled. A legend was gone, killed by his closest kin. 13. Billie Holiday. I Don't Want to Die in Prison. On July 17, 1959, Billie Holiday, the legendary jazz singer, took her last breath at Metropolitan Hospital in New York. She didn't die on stage, nor in the arms of her fans, but on a hospital bed, her wrists handcuffed to the railing, with police standing guard just outside. I don't want to die in prison. Those were Billie's final words, but her harsh life gave her no choice. Her entire existence was a string of tragedies, abandoned by her father, raped, beaten down, and hunted to her death by the authorities. From a voice that mesmerized the world with strange fruit, she was turned into a criminal just for her addiction, a vice that life itself had forced upon her. Billie Holiday didn't die in a prison cell, but she died a prisoner. 14. Don Cornelius. I Can't Take It Anymore. On February 1st, 2012, Don Cornelius, the man who brought soul, funk, and hip-hop to American television, said goodbye to the world in the most tragic way. A single gunshot to the head, an ending no one saw coming. He left at 75, in utter solitude. Before pulling the trigger, Don said only one thing: I can't take it anymore. From a legend with the dazzling Soul Train empire, Don Cornelius was drowned by illness and mental anguish. He'd once transformed American culture, paving the way for icons like Michael Jackson and Prince, but in the end, he fell to his own life's weight. A long decline, a shocking death, and an unforgettable legacy. 15. Sam Cooke. Lady, You Shoot Me. On December 11, 1964, a gunshot rang out in a rundown Los Angeles motel room. Sam Cooke, the father of soul, collapsed to the floor, blood staining his suit. He managed to utter his last words, "Lady, you shoot me." And then, silence. A legend died on the spot. He was just 33. Police called it justifiable self-defense, but Sam's body was beaten beyond recognition. The woman who accused him was later arrested for prostitution. Too many unanswered questions. A wealthy, powerful black man who dared to fight for equality, was someone determined to silence him forever? Sam Cooke's death remains a dark mystery, and his voice, along with those unresolved questions, haunts us to this day. 16. Otis Redding. I feel bad about this flight. On December 10, 1967, a Beechcraft H-18 plunged into the icy waters of Lake Monona. Otis Redding, the soul star at the peak of his career, was gone forever at 26. Just hours earlier, he'd said something that felt like a grim premonition. I feel bad about this flight. But fate gave him no chance to turn back. Just 6 days before his death, he recorded "Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay." Its wistful melody and lyrics felt like a prophecy of his departure. No one could have guessed it would become his final legacy. Otis Redding never got to see his greatest success, but his voice, like that doomed flight, never landed. It soars on, echoing beyond death. 17. Etta James. I want to be remembered as an honest woman. On January 20th, 2012, Etta James, the queen of blues, soul, and jazz, took her last breath. She passed at 73, carrying her golden voice and a secret no one expected. On her deathbed, she looked at her husband and said, "I want to be remembered as an honest woman." But the truth left people stunned. Etta had hidden millions of dollars she'd earned from her husband. Some of it was lost to drugs, gambling, and debts no one knew about. Her whole life, Artis Mills, her loyal husband, stood by her, enduring everything. But right before she died, he learned he'd been deceived. In that moment, who felt more pain? Etta James left behind a legend and an unresolved shock. 18. Aaliyah. I don't want to get on that plane. On August 25, 2001, Aaliyah, the princess of R&B, boarded a doomed flight. Minutes after takeoff, the Cessna 402B crashed to the ground, exploding into a fireball. All 9 people on board perished. But the most chilling part? Before stepping onto the plane, Aaliyah sensed it. She looked at the tiny, overloaded aircraft and said, "I don't want to get on that plane." Her manager pushed her. The crew reassured her. Aaliyah reluctantly climbed aboard. Moments later, fate sealed the deal. The plane was over capacity, the pilot unlicensed and high on cocaine. A preventable tragedy. But Aaliyah couldn't escape. She left at 22, leaving an immortal legacy and a haunting prophecy. 19. Harrell. I built an empire. On May 7, 2020, Andre Harrell, the man behind P. Diddy, Mary J. Blige, and Jodeci's success, suddenly died of heart failure. At 59, he passed with ambitions still burning. Just hours earlier, he'd been discussing plans to revive music. Then he collapsed. His final words? I built an empire. A statement beyond dispute. But painfully, that empire had been crumbling for years. Harrell once ruled Uptown Records, discovering and mentoring Diddy. But in 1993, he made a fatal mistake, firing Diddy. Diddy founded Bad Boy Records, soared to the top, while Uptown faded. Harrell's death closed a glorious but regret-filled chapter. A legend departed, leaving a nagging question. Could he have risen higher if he hadn't let his golden chance slip away? 20. Nat King Cole. I don't want my kids to remember me as a failure. On February 15, 1965, Nat King Cole, the legend with over 50 million records sold, died steeped in regret. At 45, he left when his peak was still unfinished. He looked at his children one last time, eyes welling up, and said, "I don't want my kids to remember me as a failure." A heart-wrenching last wish, as if he'd committed an unforgivable sin. But why did such a great voice carry such torment? It was remorse over lung cancer, the result of a deadly habit. He smoked 2 or 3 packs a day, believing it smoothed his voice. When diagnosed, he refused surgery, fearing he'd lose his gift. The cost was steep. Months later, the disease took everything. The day he died, his hospital room still reeked of tobacco. Nat King Cole wasn't a failure in his career, but he lost the most crucial battle, the one against himself. 21st Natalie Cole. I Want to Sing with Daddy Again. On New Year's Eve 2015, as the world celebrated, Natalie Cole, the golden voice of R&B and jazz, took her last breath at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. She passed amid the grief of millions of fans, but her final words truly broke hearts. I want to sing with Daddy again. Her whole life, she chased her father. Nat King Cole died when she was just 15, leaving a void she could never fill. Despite winning 9 Grammys and selling over 30 million albums, deep down, she remained that little girl wondering, would Daddy be proud of me? In her final moments, she carried that longing, departing as if racing toward his shadow on the horizon. 22nd, Nina Simone. I Have Nothing Left to Lose. On April 21, 2003, Nina Simone, the soul queen and unrelenting civil rights warrior, took her last breath in southern France. She passed quietly, but her final words sent shivers through the world. I have nothing left to lose. A statement dripping with bitterness, like a final declaration from a woman crushed by life. Born with prodigious talent, she was never accepted as a classical artist because of her skin. Rejected, beaten, cast aside, she turned pain into power, becoming a protest icon. But the cost was steep: surveilled, banned, exiled from her homeland. In her final years, she lived alone, drained mentally and physically. Then she left, shedding it all, free from countless wounds. 23. Coretta Scott King. I Forgive the Man Who Killed My Husband. On January 30, 2006, Coretta Scott King, widow of Martin Luther King Jr., passed away at 78. Her final words stunned the world. I forgive the man who killed my husband. A jaw-dropping statement that sparked endless debate. Did she truly forgive James Earl Ray, the man convicted of King's murder, or was this a deeper, coded message? For 38 years, she bore the pain of losing her husband but never stopped fighting. She believed Ray was a scapegoat, that the U.S. government orchestrated the assassination. Many see her last words as a final jab, subtly accusing those who'd hidden the truth for decades. In the end, no one could crack it. Coretta Scott King is gone, but the mystery of Martin Luther King's death lingers. These great souls are gone, but their final words still stun the world. Some are steeped in bitterness, others carry unsolved mysteries. Do you think there are still secrets untold behind these last statements? Drop a comment below and let's dive into the stories of these legendary figures together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next jaw-dropping tales from behind Hollywood's glamour.